No.
All
No,
right,
I
we're
got
live, Ray.
Okay. Welcome everybody.
Oh, use the mic though.
Where you been at?
He doesn't need the mic.
No, he does. It's for the YouTube.
I don't want to use the
You don't want to use the mic? Well, they're not going to hear you, but that's okay. You want me to do it then? I can do it.
That's it, well, but you president.
Where you been hiding at?
All right, welcome to Tropical Ridge neighborhood. We are live on YouTube and on Zoom, and we are going to start with Ken Johnson from FAU. He has a presentation for us. Is there anything else I missed? Is that pretty much it? Okay, so Ken, I'll give you the mic.
Well, and if you could also help me get back to the screen, since this is and actually
that one. There you
still
go.
working, folks. We'll be there in just a second.
No worries. Thank you everybody for rearranging a little bit. This helps us work better.
Hey, look at that. There's Sylvia.
Oh,
Did we lose it?
no. I'm just trying to get everything set up. So the technology can never defeat me. It can only slow me down. So, you guys ready? I'll start whenever you want me to start. What do you do?
Just come right here. Does that work for you?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ken Johnson. I'm the Associate Dean of Graduate Programs at Florida Atlantic University's College of Business. But really, for the purposes of tonight, I'm a real estate economist. So I'm an academic, but all of my research is related to housing. So, and we have some indexes that we make available to the public that are out there, and we try to track housing prices, rent prices, and then the combination of the two to see if prices are out of whack, if you will, in 100 metropolitan markets around the U.S., one of which being Southeast Florida, Miami Metro. So it is macro. I can't drill down more narrowly than what we have right now. So it's census level data, but we can track prices from Zillow, build statistical models, estimate where rent should be, estimate where prices should be, then compare them to where they actually are and see if we're at a premium or a discount. Obviously, at this point in time, we're at a premium. I believe in every market on the housing prices, and just 2 markets are at a discount on rents, I think. But we'll look at these really quickly. So this is all part of the FAU Real Estate Initiative. This is available. Again, I'm assuming you guys can capture this, right? Matt?
Yeah. It's on YouTube as well.
So you guys can always come back to this, open source. We don't track your IP addresses. We don't charge anybody. We'll start with rents very quickly. I didn't realize I'd be working with a Mac, which again, I hate technology. I know how to make it work for me, but evidently not with a Mac. So here we go. So the first index that we work on is a rental index, and we look at 100 metropolitan areas around the country. We take out averages. We use something called Zori data. That's from Zillow. And we can see that the average rent in the U.S. right now is $1,900, almost $2,000. Rent should be closer to, boy, this is a really temperamental little.
Yeah, put paper.
Let's see if we can.
And that's rent for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom,
Sure,
studio.
that's a good question. So what we do is we build a composite unit. So we take all the units that are out there. Some are apartments, some are condos, some are homes. So what we have is a statistical estimate of how many bathrooms, how many bedrooms, size, geographic location, etc. And we model those prices. So it's not just apartments or 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, which you see a lot in Rent Cafe and things like that. It gives you an idea. This is a little bit more exacting. So the average rent right now in the country is just under $2,000, should be more like $1,900. They're paying about a 5% premium around the U.S. on average. So if we come down here, though, and we want to ask some questions about, well, where are the most overpriced markets in the country? And unfortunately, this is a race that we are winning in Florida that we wish we weren't. So if we look at the premiums, and these work very much like Excel. You'll play with these little sliders at the top of the page. I don't know if you can see. Well, you can't see my mouse cursor there, but I'm in that first column. Come on. There you go. So I can make this change, this premium or discount change. So that's the premium. Those are the lowest. The highest, come on, I was changing.
So you're actually alphabetical at the moment.
Yeah, sorry. So it doesn't matter now. I went over, needed to be one column over. So I'm now at premiums or discount. We added in San Juan this particular month because it came into the data set. We don't know if we're going to keep San Juan simply because you can't really choose to live between San Juan and, say, New York. Or I guess you can, but you're going to have to change your job and everything else. We think it might be so geographically dislocated that might not be a good match. We're considering the same thing with Hawaii because, and there are no Alaskan cities in here. But anyway, so the real highlight to this, though, is if we look at where are people paying premiums for rents, where in the country are you paying the highest premiums, San Juan is winning 19% above where they should be paying on average. Unfortunately, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 Florida metropolitan areas in the top 10 most overpriced rental markets in the country. That's the bad news. The good news is, we look at the year-over-year changes.
Are we considered in the Miami market?
We are.
Okay.
So Miami Metro is everywhere from Homestead all the way up to the boundary line at North Palm Beach, right? So this Tri-County area, it's the U.S. Census Bureau track data, right? So we just match that with Zillow data, and then we build our statistical estimates from that data to where rent prices should be.
And
What are the other
what's,
three, and can we get this on YouTube later?
Yeah.
Yes.
and,
Well, I'm not in charge of that, but I think Matt is.
yeah.
Yes.
I'll
So-
make sure you get it one way or another.
And what is your algorithm or concept for where average rent should be?
So
How do you estimate that?
sure, glad to, and this will get real wonky very quick, but let me
I
go.
mean, I could tell you what mine, I think it should be 500, but that's just an opinion.
Well, so what we do, and
Not much behind it.
I'll show you the pricing algorithm, and I'm free to take questions at any time. So I like being interactive. So our methodology is right here. Gets pretty wonky pretty quick. I show you the stuff for the pricing, and then we do the same thing with rents. We build a model. So we want to model prices. Once we model prices, then we look at the difference between where prices are and where they should be, and we calculate a very simple premium. So let's say prices should be $1,000. So I can do
the deviation, I can, that I'm not too, where it should be minus
Mhm.
where it is, but how do you, what's
Right here.
the logic between what it should be?
Well, what it should be is priced
Highlight,
out.
It'll show up there.
Okay, all right. Sorry. You can't see where my cursor is here.
No, I've been looking for the cursor.
It takes a
There
moment.
it
There
is.
it is. Yeah.
There it is. So it's actually that whole equation. So sorry, guys. So we model, this is home prices, then we substitute home prices with rents. I'll go back to the rent model in just a second. So all we're doing, it's a time series, log linear time series. It's a good fit. The reason it tends to work on housing and rents is that both are what are called mean reverting. They get a little above the average and they go a little bit below the average. And unfortunately, the trend is always kind of upward sloping. Very rarely do you see deviations from that. But because it migrates around that trend, this is really something that's statistically easy to model.
It smooths it. I
Yeah,
guess.
that's right.
Yeah.
But then from there we estimate, we calculate the difference, so we have an expected, sorry. Sorry. And this is the last wonky stuff I'll do, I promise you guys. So that's our estimation equation, and then the premium is just a discount, or it's $1,200. It's $1,200, but it should be $1,000. $1,200 minus $1,000 divided by 1,000, you're at a 20% premium. I can do that number in my head. So when we go back, when we look at our rentals, this is one index that I do. One guy's over at Florida Gulf Coast. The other is at the University of Alabama. And there we go, it's loading now. So this is the rental side. One thing I did want to show you on the rental side that's a little bit hopeful here in South Florida. If we look at the year over year, right? You notice in the top 10, so now if you look in this far right column, sorry, I don't know why it's not highlighting, but if you'll look in the far right column and go across, there's no, well, Cape Coral. Hurricane strikes there. That's explaining a lot what's going on in Cape Coral right now. But none of these cities are in Florida. So that's good news. When we do call up just the Florida cities, you can use this search box. I say, just give me those in FL, Florida. And you'll see Cape Coral is definitely still year over year really, really high. You're seeing Northport still high. 3 to 5% is about normal for average rental increase in the country, just depending on where you are in the country and what given year. When we look at Miami, we're at 6.5, 6.6%. That's this Tri-County area. That's just a little overheated. Now go back a year ago and that number was more like 15%. So our rent crisis is slowing down. Prices are not backing up, but they're slowing down.
And I think you're explaining Cape Coral is so high because of hurricane damage and housing is at a premium.
Housing, both, well, it's true everywhere, but especially in Cape Coral, you've got really high housing prices, even though it's coming down, and you've got really high rents, and they're still rising at a very rapid pace over in Cape Coral. So when we go back here and we look at just housing prices, we display this one a little bit different. I do this with Ellie Braha down at FIU, and I have a third index with both Ellie and Bill Harden, who I've known for 20-something years. So we can look at, well, let's just look at Florida since this is where we're most interested. We're Florida-centric. We share with the University of Alabama on the rental index. So if you go to that one at in Tuscaloosa, it emphasizes Alabama, which is where I'm originally from, ironically. So, but I don't think most people are coming to our website because we have more national level data and they're more interested in Florida. They're not that interested in Alabama. And we'll have a data load here. I was vamping to see if our data will load pretty quickly. So now this is all that crazy stats that I was showing you. This is the data, and it's not Zori this time, Zillow Observed Rental Index. It's ZHVI, Zillow Housing Value Index, ZHVI, open source, and we model from there. That's what we use to model. And these are averages, and that's true for rent. It drives me nuts when people go into the paper and they'll talk about the average price has gone down and therefore the median changed from this to that. Statistically, you cannot do that. Mathematically, you can't calculate percentage changes with a median. So most people, it just bothers me when you talk about median and mean as if they're the same thing. So I fib to you, I did get a little wonky there. Here are the 9 metro areas. Again, we do the same 100 cities, so there's 9 metros in Florida. When we look at housing prices, and let's look at Miami since I'll make this one come up.
Where's Northport anyhow?
Northport, at Fort Myers area.
Oh, okay.
And do you
Didn't
have a
know that.
map? Yes, I'd like to figure out where Cape Coral is.
Cape Coral is Fort Myers too.
Fort Myers.
Yeah.
So it's on the other side.
Yeah, they're all the other side.
Got anything going north
Uh,
from here?
Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa. So, but this is our market.
Palm Bay is also northwest.
Yeah, Palm Bay. Palm Bay is running up the East Coast. So this one's displayed a little bit differently. If you'll notice, this is interactive. So we've had over 400,000 visitors, and the vast overwhelming majority come to this one because it's interactive and they stay on site a really long time. Right now, if we look in Miami Metro, this is this Tri-County area here, you can see, if you'll just bring your cursor over there, you can't see the cursor, but you can see the numbers. As of the end of March, this past month, the average price in this Tri-County area was $451,280. If we built the statistical model to predict it, it's $323,781. The percentage difference in that, the premium on average, the average buyer is paying almost 40% higher than they should otherwise be. When you look at this picture, and I'm an economist, so I should have been thinking better about this, but I've got a purple line or a mauve line and a light blue line. I should have probably had a better contrast of colors, but the darker line is where prices should be. The blue line, the light blue line, that's again that trend. It goes a little above, a little below, migrates back above. That pattern has held for over 100 years, right? So the light blue line are where prices are, the dark line is where prices should be, and you can go back through time and see, well, where were we about the start of the pandemic? We were at about a 3% premium. Who cares? It wasn't that big of a deal. You know, we can go all the way back and say, well, what the heck happened last time when we peaked?
So 2017
7, 8-ish.
was a good time to buy.
Oh, yeah. Well, about 2012 was about the best. We'll find the bottom here in just a second.
And this is again housing together, purchase and rental.
No, we haven't done them together yet. I jumped from rental to
Thank you.
prices, okay? So this is prices. So, boy, we were overpriced to the tune of about 67, 68% back 07-ish, right? Late 06. We bottomed. Oh, come on. So we bottomed. You notice the number now, that discount is a negative? So we bottomed, that appears to be first part of 2012. Now, obviously, in hindsight, we remember that, and we know it's somewhere around in there, but we can't use this to really make money, because if we could, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd own an island. It's called Australia. So we bottomed right around here in 2012, and we can see here's...
It's not a perfectly regular pattern, is it?
No, it's not. But here's what's really neat about this. Everybody's all nervous, and rightfully we should be, because we're overpriced where we should be. That means there's going to be some downward pressure on prices. But we're only about 40% above where we should be. And if we go back and we look at the entire country, it's kind of more bad news, although a year ago it wasn't. Florida cities were not that overpriced. Most prices have been falling in the western half of the U.S. They're stubbornly sticky in the eastern half. In Florida, matter of fact, last month, all 9 measured metropolitan areas in Florida actually went up in price in Florida. I don't care what you heard. Prices actually went up again last month. So they had been trickling down just a little bit. And slow data feed here.
Everybody's moving here.
That is part of what is going on exactly. So while we're waiting for the data to load, so why are prices not as at risk today as they were in 2007, 8-ish, right, when we were peaking? And the answer is because everybody's moving here at a faster rate than ever before. Additionally, we're way short on the number of units we need, and that's total roofs. That's rents to live under, roofs to live under and rent, plus roofs to live under and own. Florida is short, and because of that shortage, that total shortage of roofs to live under, prices are going to stay stubbornly high. Means if you own, it's probably, you're not going to lose a lot of equity like you did last time. But then we have this stubborn, persistent problem of unaffordable housing that's going to be with us for quite some time. It just is. And this is a good thing in the long run, but it takes a while for income to catch up. And in the meantime, it's very difficult for everybody. So this time the crisis isn't going to be all the equity that disappeared when the housing market crashed. It's going to be these rents and these home prices are so high relative to income, it's very unaffordable to live here, right? And I think that's something this neighborhood is probably in particular facing, right? It's very expensive. You see a home when it does sell, it sells at a very high price and rents at a very high price, making it very difficult for people to live in the neighborhood. So what you see in response to that is exactly what went on after World War II and other times in our history in the U.S. People came home from World War II and moved into metropolitan areas. There was a spike in demand. It takes a while to build the units. So you saw people double up, triple up, multi-generational.
For sure.
Oh, yeah, multi-generational living. You know, The Golden Girls was not just a sitcom that was taken from real world examples, and I'm a little bit older than you guys, so maybe you might remember The Odd Couple or something, maybe. But that's taken from, you know, it's just too expensive to live here, and you start to see people double up. You'll unfortunately start to see alternative forms of housing. That's code for trailers. It is. It's code for mobile homes.
Plenty of trailers in people's backyards even.
Yes. So then we have to talk about, so how is it, what do we have to do to get better here? Meaning have more affordable housing, because will prices fall? I want to go back to one more website very quickly, and then we'll I'll open it up and you guys can ask any questions that you want.
While you, well, I was going to say while you still had that curve up, it'd be interesting to look at what the income curve looks like. I assume that it looks somewhat like the purple,
It does.
somewhat.
Yeah.
It probably lags it by a certain amount. And it doesn't do anywhere near as much of the curvy stuff.
It doesn't. It's more.
It's much
Doesn't
slower
vibrate.
moving.
It doesn't oscillate around the mean. The level of income rise is slower than housing prices and rents are going up. That's definitely true. And that's true all over the country right now. So especially, and because our housing shortage just isn't here. It's particularly exacerbated in Florida, really bad. So, but what's going on in most of the country is just like here. So many builders and small developers, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way because I've already told you I'm from Alabama and we don't call a builder or a developer or developers, we call them builders. And I use the term pickup truck builder because they tend to be smaller, but there's thousands of them. Those people all went out of business. I mean, now we have a few national large builders.
Resta Homes, Geo
Yep.
Homes, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So they just can't build fast enough. There's also issues at the county and city levels around the country, in particular here. Trying to start a new unit is nearly impossible. Even if you can get the land and you have a buyer and a seller and they're willing to, getting all the permitting, getting all of the zoning changed is nearly impossible to get done. Until we figure out how to do this in Florida, we're going to have this persistently long housing crisis. What you're looking at now are, I did go back to the prices for you there. So I went back to prices. Let's go to, that's the pricing curve. That's for Cape Coral. I want to show you the price to rent ratio, which actually tells you why prices will not fall or should not fall. If they do, it won't be dramatic. So this is the third and final index that I do with, come on, it's opening up now, national data. If you don't have a Mac at home, it'll probably open a lot faster.
And are not paid by Apple.
Yeah, so I'm just not a Mac friend. So we look at the price to rent. We take those two numbers and we put them together. So
Okay.
some of you have probably heard of the PE ratio when you watch the financial news networks, price to earnings. This is the same thing. It's really price to dividends. This is price instead of dividends. This is the average home price in an area divided by the average rent of that home for the entire year. So I could do a number in my head. If the average home in the area was $400,000 and the average annual rents for the area were $20,000, the price to rent ratio would be 20. The higher that number and the more above a normal average local average, the more likely you're going to see prices go down. So you have price to rent ratios out in San Francisco in the 30s, in San Francisco, parts of California. When you flip that, invert that, they're earning a 2-3% return. And they're not getting any capital appreciation anymore. That's just from rents before they take out taxes, insurance, etc. So, but if we look at our market here in South Florida, our rents are high, our prices are high. So, and we already saw prices are pretty high, not as high as before, but is there a chance that they will come down? There's always a chance.
So it's more seller's market.
It's still more seller's market. It's still more. So come on, this thing just does not like to work with me.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
There,
Miami, there you go.
Miami, here we go. So this looks at the price to rent ratio. That's that ratio, and the dark line now is just the average for the last 8 years because it does move around. This doesn't oscillate. This is not a trend. So what you're better served to do statistically is take a slice of time. We took 8 years because of the data. And we say, what was the average price to rent ratio in each of those 100 cities? And then we compared it to where it actually was. So when you're above the average, it means that you're a little bit rent friendly.
Can you slide up so you can see the year scale?
Yes. Come on. It's on my screen
There you
here.
go.
There you go. So this is, come on. Same thing as before. We can look at where we should be. But the big number that stands out here, by the way, we're a little high. Our price to rent on average has been a little bit less than what it is right now, which means we're a little bit rent friendly. And I get nervous at buying at the peak of anything, stocks, bonds, housing, doesn't matter. But here, the premium is only about 6-7%. Our actual price to rent ratio is that 13.52. We'd have been better served to put a dollar symbol on that, because that says you pay on average in this Tri-County area $13.52 in price for every $1 in annual rent. That's really low. And if you invert that 13.52, I can't do it, it's somewhere between 6 and 7% as a gross return, if you will. And we're still getting some capital appreciation here. Prices here in South Florida are far more supported by rents than most parts of the country, which is why our prices are stubbornly stuck where they are. So if we go back one last time to actual prices, you'll see something unique about Miami that I think is most likely to actually bear out over the next few years. By the way, we did exactly what I'm about to show you for about 4 years back in the late 80s. We were in a housing situation very much like today. Come on, probably did not do myself a favor by opening up the national data set. Let's do it. So back in the late 80s, our prices actually went flat for about 3 or 4 years. We were at the peak of a cycle. The last cycle was pretty dramatic, nothing like we've had the last 2 times. And everybody thought there'd be a pricing crash, but there wasn't. Prices went flat for about 3 or 4 years. Incomes came up, prices took off again because interest rates came down. And people kept moving to Florida. So we should open in just a minute. And presto changeo.
There you go. It worked.
The internet's not fast here.
That's okay.
Is it possible if you could add to your data like North Beach? If it's possible.
Everybody always asks, can you do my neighborhood? And the answer is, unfortunately, we can't, because we take a big national data feed,
Yeah.
and there's just nothing we can do to
It's
control.
Like saying, can you do Boynton, Lantana? So that's why they say Miami.
Yes.
How about
It's
Lake
kind
Park
of
Shores?
generous.
Well, we go to, we've been talking some about another project with the Association of Realtors. Is it Broward, Palm Beach, and St. Lucie Association of Realtors? And so we can't do the same stuff. The computing power, building that average price is the really big computing power punch. But we could do more local stuff if we have data. It's just the problem. So I know you need a year index. So here's Miami. Look what prices have done. If you'll just come, why is my little thing not showing? There it is. So there you go. Basically, go back one more month. Come on. Matt, your mouse is like, I'm going to give it the worst mouse in the history of mankind. So your prices, they now it jumped a bunch.
There's a lag between that screen and that screen,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So here we are, somewhere around July, 1st of August. You notice prices were at 441. We can go all the way out till today, and prices are at 451. The average price of the average home in this Tri-County area has gone up $10,000 in, what is that, 7-8 months? When you
Sounds
look
about
at,
right.
but that's on $451,000. We're looking at an average property appreciation of about 2 or 3% annually. That's probably going to bear out. But rather than the math, if you just look at the last little part of that curve, it went flat. I think we are entering a phase with a very high probability that that we did in the late 80s.
It's going
We're
to sit
hoping.
flat for a while.
It probably will set flat for a while.
It's interest rates.
Probably interest rates were the big flattener there. Absolutely right.
To keep it from skyrocketing further.
But because right now we still have people coming in a significant number, and we are not building fast enough. Palm Beach County needs roughly 7,200 homes a year, 7,200 units, not necessarily homes. Roofs to live under and rent, roofs to live under and own. 7,200 a year need to be built. We're building about 3,500.
That
We're-
do
Half
it.
your needs, like half.
But
Not quite half. 7,200, and we're building 3,500.
But let me ask a question. I raised this at a regional planning council meeting once. There, the discussion was more, well, where should we build? Should we build east?
Mhm.
Should we keep the density eastward? Should we let it spread west? What should happen? And the question I always have is, because I hear this a lot, that the solution to this is build more, build more. But you can't do that indefinitely. We are very bounded in South Florida. You got the ocean on one side. I
Yep.
don't see us expanding into the ocean. We got the Everglades on the other side. We did stretch that with the urban development boundary down in Miami. And that cost the Corps of Engineers quite a bit of money.
Yep.
We're not going to do that again. And parts of Broward County are built right smack out to that edge.
Yep.
So they're not going anywhere. At what point do you say, hey, just because people keep moving here, it's not possible to build your way out indefinitely?
See, and everybody
Unless
thinks.
you want to be Hong Kong.
Well,
then,
everybody
you know,
everybody thinks we're going to go vertical. That's not going to happen in our lifetimes. I'll be dead and dust 100 years before this becomes a vertical metropolitan area.
Well, they
Well,
already
it'll
put up
be-
an 82 unit at the end of 10th and 8th Street.
But it's not going to look like downtown Miami or downtown West Palm. There's going to be some vertical building that goes on. But what people were already seeing, if you look at the migration patterns or the growth, Miami-Dade is expected to grow about 4% in population in the next 10 years. Broward, 8. Palm Beach County, 12. St. Lucie County, 17%. We're simply, it's like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. People are simply moving up the coast. So,
That brings up my question. In 2009, after Hurricane Andrew hit, people from the Miami-Dade area
Mhm.
moved up north, but they didn't stop Palm Beach or St.
Mhm.
Lucie. They went to North Carolina.
Yeah.
you still see that, but we're gaining 2% per year in population in the state of Florida. So while some few people are still going to North Carolina, when I moved down, I came back in 2005, and I moved into Coral Gables. I was working at FAU at the time, and I was driving to school, and I don't speak Spanish. My wife is from Bogota, and I don't speak Spanish. She grew up here. She came here when she was 16, so she won't teach me Spanish. But I'm driving along, and I'm trying to read this sign, and it says North Carolina on it, and that's about the only thing. And every day I'd learn a new word. And basically the sign read, if you've just moved to Miami and are unhappy, come to North Carolina.
in Spanish.
And so you're still seeing that. So you're seeing rapid growth. I believe the county that's growing the fastest in the state is it's the Fort Myers, that's Lee, I think it is.
Yeah.
So it's growing at about 25% expected growth in population in the next 10 years. So, and they are, by the way, in Lee County, I can tell you, hurricane aside, they really think that they're going to end up and wake up one morning and it's going to be nothing but high rises there. They have nothing but land over there. So you're going to see redevelopment. Here's something that's not very often talked about in Southeast Florida. If we have a housing shortage, which we do, then we would expect our density, the average number of people that live in a unit, to be high, right? If there's a shortage with X number of people, that number should be high. So the average density of a unit in the United States of America is 2.51 people. That could be a home that you own, an apartment that you rent, 2.51 people. The average density in this Tri-County area is 2.4.
But that's the reported density.
No, that's the count. Nobody, if you go to all the counties, they're hard to come up with. So you have to get an estimate of the number of units. So it's not reported. I had to calculate that number. The reason that is we have a lot of second homes that show with 0. We actually have enough units to go around
PITS.
So why are they keeping it empty?
because they live somewhere else.
They just want to have a second home.
Well, they want to have a second home. Sometimes there's rental restrictions in neighborhoods. My neighborhood is an association, and they just do not want tenants in the neighborhood. And owners will move out of their home. They'll maybe for the season, or maybe they just want to rent it. Well, they can't right away. They have to go through a pretty draconian process. We have enough roofs to live under. But that's not going to change in my estimation. We're going to probably have to build our way out. Or we're going to have to convince people that live in Southeast Florida that it's okay if somebody lives next door to you and is a renter, right? And that's kind of,
Relax the rules.
yes, most people think that having a renter next door, it's this NIMBYism concept that it will actually drive down the value of the property, and that's not true. There's no, I don't know if it's not true, but there's no empirical evidence that bears that out.
In this neighborhood, there are a lot of renters. So
Yeah.
it's really
That's-
more the single-family homeowners that are the anomaly in a lot of cases. There are a lot of corporations that own places and rent.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You know, there are a lot of rent in this neighborhood,
Mhm.
association we're at.
Yep.
It's primarily renters.
Yeah, it's mostly businesses that are owning, or people that are owning these and renting them out. Like next door to me, they just did a house and made it 2 homes into one, so 2 different families can live in it.
So in 2017, I was actually shopping for a home. I was shopping in Coral Springs and I was shopping here. I wasn't sure where to buy a home. And then, my husband liked here, Lakewood Beach, and I was at my family's in Coral Springs, Parkland area. So then, but I noticed that when I was shopping the different homes, every time I went to a renter's home, it was a lot less taken care of. I would see holes in the floor. I would just see a lot of things that are nasty that I don't want to mention. But when I went to a home, like when it was actually a homeowner's home, it was definitely better taken care of than a rent. It seemed like a lot of renters just go in, kind of trash the place, and then stay there for a year or a couple months or whatever, what have you, and then trash the place, and not trash the place.